We don't have a son. Dad's words slice the November air the moment he rips open the front door. Behind him, the smell of roasting turkey coils through the hallway that used to be mine. I'm 32, a senior VP at Morgan Stanley, and in that instant, I'm also nothing. My father's ice chip eyes tell me Ethan Callahan no longer exists. Pull up a chair because the fallout from that sentence doesn't just shatter a family. It detonates a $1 million money laundering ring, sparks an FBI raid, and lands every blood relative I have behind bars while I build a new life across the Atlantic. And it all starts on Thanksgiving Day. The 2-hour drive from Manhattan to suburban New Jersey is my ritual decompression chamber. Every mile marker loosens the Wall Street knot in my shoulders. I traded 100-hour work weeks for this pilgrimage. Mom's maple glazed turkey, Dad's wood-burning fireplace, my younger brother Ryan's obnoxious jokes that somehow still feel like home. This year, I'm extra raw. 6 brutal months shepherding a billion-dollar merger left me running on fumes. So I packed the trunk of my BMW with a vintage Cabernet and tucked inside my briefcase a crisp Thanksgiving bonus check for my parents. Because that's our unspoken language of love. I earn, they spend, we smile. The Colonial with the red front door looks postcard perfect when I roll up. I'm rehearsing Mom's inevitable "Ethan" squeal when the door swings open. Only it's Dad filling the frame, arms crossed, face granite. "Happy Thanksgiving," I manage. His reply is a guillotine. "We don't have a son." Shock floods my veins. Ryan appears behind him, twirling the keys to what used to be my bedroom. Smug. Silent. "Please leave," Dad whispers, and that razor-quiet edge cuts deeper than any shout. I don't beg. I don't blink. I just pivot, march back down the stone path, and shut myself into a BMW that suddenly feels like an escape pod jettisoned from a burning mothership. Inside the car, I scroll to our joint banking app because pain looks for proof. The numbers stare back, casual, damning, monthly miscellaneous transfers I'd never questioned a joint account I'd opened years ago to help them manage bills withdrawals that look small until you add them up. But the big one glares $750,000 wired 3 months ago to a title company I don't recognize. A single click shows it funded a lake house purchase. My parents just evicted their non-existent son with the lakefront palace he unknowingly bought for his golden boy brother. Something inside me crystallizes. Not grief, not even anger yet, but a cold resolution harder than bulletproof glass. They closed a door. I'm about to open every vault they've hidden behind. Hotel lobbies are designed for transient souls. That's why I choose the nearby Marriott as my war room. Between bottomless coffee and the blue glow of my laptop, I transform from wounded son into calculating banker. First call Morgan Stanley's private client desk. Access revoked, transfers canceled. Damage control. Then I hire Daniel Park, forensic accounting legend rumor, says he can make a spreadsheet sing confession. Daniel wants 5 years of statements and a frightening retainer. I wire both before he finishes the sentence. While Daniel digs, Mom calls in tears. Her card declined at Whole Foods, the mortgage payment mysteriously unscheduled. Did I do something to the accounts? I watch the voicemail twice, parsing each tremble for sincerity. It's Broadway-level acting, but the plot holes are showing. I say nothing. Silence is leverage. Daniel's first report arrives encrypted. $45 K for Mom's knee surgery. Real. But Mom's knee never met the surgeon. The cash went straight to a Rolex boutique the same day. Smaller transfers, $9 or $800 at a time, funnel into Ryan's dealership, classic structuring, to dodge federal scrutiny. From there, the money hops to shell course in the Caymans, then vanishes. Translation: my family launders cash, and I'm the unwitting bankroll. The discovery feels like diving into icy water, shock, sharp clarity, sharper. Yet some traitorous part of me still whispers, maybe they were duped. Maybe Ryan lied to them too. Hope dies when Mrs. Whitaker, the septuagenarian neighbor, who baked me after-school cookies, sends a shaky cell phone video Dad, Mom, and Ryan on Thanksgiving porch laughing about the look on Ethan's face and toasting the cash cow. Goodbye, denial. Hello, vengeance. Daniel's audits expose a darker artery transfers trace back 10 years right to the week my beloved Grandma Eleanor died. According to Mom, Gran left her $2 million estate to give Ryan a head start. I'd swallowed that pill of inequity because filial piety tastes better than suspicion. I drive to the county surrogate's office and request the certified will. It names me sole heir every last dollar. The document my parents showed me was an art school forgery. Grief and rage fuse into radioactive purpose. I call Julia Stein litigator, so fierce opposing counsel budget extra antacids. Within 48 hours, Julia, Daniel, and I assemble a dossier thick enough to replace the Oxford English Dictionary, but ours defines crimes: grand larceny, forgery, conspiracy, money laundering, racketeering. We slide it across the metal desk of FBI Special Agent Torres. He's been chasing an international stolen car ring and couldn't pin the funding source until my family tree landed in his lap. Torres shakes my hand. This takes guts. We'll handle the rest. For 6 sleepless days, I wait in my Brooklyn apartment, each ring of my phone a detonator. Then Tuesday dawn breaks, with national news sirens aerial footage of tactical vest agents storming a glass front lake house. Ryan Frog marched out in handcuffs, my parents escorted from the Red Door Colonial. Dad screams to cameras that Ryan set them up. The vipers bite each other once the nest burns. Arrests are only Act 1 of justice. The legal grind lasts a year. Depositions, frozen assets, media feeding frenzy. Morgan Stanley places me on paid leave, shields me from press, and quietly thanks me for handing the FBI a silver platter case. Ryan's jail calls drip venom promises of revenge that sound pathetic, echoing off concrete walls. Dad pleads confusion. Mom tries one last manipulation. Use your money. Hire us lawyers, say you were mistaken. Then we can be a family again. I answer with 3 words: I saw everything. The line goes dead, and so does any lingering sun-shaped hope inside me. Verdicts land like thunderbolts, Ryan, 15 years for racketeering and money laundering. Mom and Dad, 8. Each for grand larceny and conspiracy. The court seizes the lake house, the Mustang, the Rolexes, the overseas accounts. Grandma's $2 million plus interest returns to its rightful owner, me. I stare at the balance like it's radioactive. Blood money can poison, or it can power change. I choose change. Step 1, sell the Manhattan penthouse, a golden cage I once bought to earn applause from people unworthy of front row seats. I downsize to a sunlit Brooklyn walk-up with a balcony just big enough for tomato plants. Step 2, therapy. Dr. Evans helps me peel decades of emotional scar tissue. You weren't their scapegoat because you were weak, she says. You were strong enough to carry blame that wasn't yours. Step 3, redemption. I funnel Grandma's restitution into the Eleanor Foundation, a nonprofit providing pro bono financial fraud assistance to seniors exploited by family. Daniel becomes treasurer. Julia sits on the board. First year we save retirees $4 million and counting. Then Morgan Stanley offers a fresh start promotion, executive director, London office, a new continent, clean slate. I pack 2 suitcases and an ironclad sense of self-worth that no longer depends on parental applause. 1 year later, I host Thanksgiving in my Kensington flat. The guest list is small but mighty. Mrs. Whitaker, first-class ticket, her first passport stamp. Daniel and spouse Julia, a bouquet from Dr. Evans. No blood ties, all chosen kin. I raise a glass. I used to think value was measured in bonuses, houses, approval. Now I know it's peace in my own soul and the integrity of the people at my table. Real family isn't inherited, it's earned. Glasses clink. Laughter fills a home built on truth, not transaction. For the first time in 33 years, Thanksgiving tastes like freedom, like the story. Subscribe for more real-life revenge dramas every week. And remember, choose your family by the lives you build, not the blood you spill. Story 2. Stepmom demanded I pay $800 rent, so I evicted her 2 freeloader kids and took back the $200,000 house. My grandparents secretly left me at it. Holy crap, this just blew huge overnight. Thank you for all of the recognition and support. I will try to answer queries in the comments. Also to those who claim this is bogus. I wish it were LOL. And yes, I have proof, but I will not disclose it due to legal concerns. Edit 2. In case you're wondering, I'm 22, female. My father is 46, male. My stepmother, Tracy, is 43, female. My stepbro, Brandon, is 25, male. And my stepsister, Sierra, is 21, yes. They are not their true names for obvious reasons. Okay, buckle up, because this is going to be a lengthy one. Seriously, get some popcorn or something, because there's a lot to unpack here. I've been holding this for weeks and just need to get it off my chest. Some background information is required first, and trust me, it will be useful later. I lost my mother to breast cancer when I was 8. It sucked, obviously, but we made it through. However, my father was absolutely wrecked, and he was scarcely able to function for the first year. By the way, my mother's parents are amazing saints and stepped up big time. They practically moved in with us to assist care for me, while my father dealt with his loss and attempted to keep his business functioning. Quick remark regarding the house situation, because it will be very significant later. My grandparents were rather well off, not very rich, but comfortable enough to purchase this massive 4-bedroom home in one of Boston's nicer districts. The plan was that we'd all live together so they could properly raise me. To be honest, that worked really well for a while. But then my father met Tracy. Not her real name, but it fits her perfectly, LOL. At a business conference in Chicago, approximately 2 years after my mother died, he was there to grow his consultancy business or whatever, and she was working as an event coordinator. According to him, they simply clicked. Tracy must have seen an opportunity with a sad widower who ran his own business, because she practically traveled across the nation to be with him after only knowing him for about 3 months. And to their astonishment, they married after 6 months of meeting. Talk about red flags. Here's where the fun begins. Tracy brought her 2 children with her. Brandon, now 25, was 11 years old and already a spoiled brat. Sierra, 21, now was 7 years old and wasn't too horrible at first. But Tracy gradually transformed her into a mini clone of herself. My grandparents tried to be kind about it, but I overheard them late at night discussing how they didn't trust Tracy. They assumed she was only pursuing Dad's money. Plot twist. They were correct, but they kept quiet for Dad's sake, since he appeared joyful for the first time since Mom's death. The first few years were tough. Tracy began small with her BS comments about how the house was adorned. Old-fashioned. It wasn't how the kitchen needed upgrading. It didn't, and how my grandparents were set in their ways. But then she became braver. She began moving furniture without permission throughout some of Mom's old decorations, claiming they were accumulating dust, and gradually took over the home. My grandparents were too nice to say anything, and my father was too love-blind to notice. Then the tasks began. At first, it was natural that everyone should help around the house, right? Except everyone became just me. Brandon was overly preoccupied with athletics. He struggled at basketball, but Tracy had Dad pay for individual coaching regardless. Sierra was too young. Despite being only 1 year younger than me by the time I was 12, I was doing the majority of the cooking and cleaning. Tracy would literally inspect the baseboards with her finger to see whether I had dusted correctly. Meanwhile, Brandon's room smelled like a mix of Axe body spray and old pizza. And Sierra's floor was continuously covered in clothes she was intending to put away. Here's the truly essential part, which I didn't know until recently. Grandma died in 2019 from heart difficulties, and Grandpa died just 3 months later because he couldn't live without her. They registered the residence in my name. Like legally, it is my all mine. They must have sensed this drama coming from a mile away and wished to protect me, but I had no idea about it. Nobody told me Dad was aware, but I suppose he didn't believe it was necessary to mention spoiler. It was quite crucial. Tracy evidently didn't know either, or she would have sought to get her name on the deed somehow. So for the past few years, I've effectively been living like a servant in my own home, cooking, cleaning, and washing everyone's laundry. Yes, including Brandon's stinky gym clothes, while Tracy sat on her ass watching Real Housewives and whining about how I loaded the dishwasher incorrectly. Brandon graduated from college 2 years ago. Barely. To be honest, I am very sure Dad paid someone off and hasn't worked since. He claims he's trying to be a content creator. However, his TikTok has only 200 followers and is mostly just him executing terrible dance moves badly. Sierra is in her 3rd year of college, ostensibly studying business, but actually just partying and uploading pretty Instagram photos of her Starbucks cups. Dad pays for everything. Her apartment near university, which she seldom uses because she is often at home, her car, which she has crashed twice, and her credit cards, which she maxes up every month. And there I was, working part-time at Starbucks, taking online classes, doing all the housekeeping, and trying to save money because Tracy kept implying that I needed to start contributing to the household. The day everything went down began like any other bad day in my house. I just completed an 8-hour shift at Starbucks. Some Tracy lowercase k, hey, yelled at me over almond milk. But that's another tale. And I was tired. But of course I had to return home and cook supper, lest Brandon get up from his gaming chair or Sierra put down her phone. I'm in the kitchen making this spaghetti recipe I discovered on TikTok NGL, and Tracy walks in dressed in one of her apparently beautiful dresses. I'm pretty sure it came from Ross, but whatever. She has this look on her face that you recognize, like when a teacher notices you passing notes in class. Yes, the one. She takes a seat at the kitchen island and keeps a close eye on me while I prepare. I'm already on edge, since she constantly finds something to complain about in my food. Last week, there was an excess of garlic, which is practically impossible. The previous week, it was excessively hot. Then she lays the bombshell on me. We need to have a serious discussion about your living situation. I'm like, what living situation? I have been here longer than you, lady. But she continues, your father and I have been chatting, and we believe it is time you started paying rent. After all, you're working now, so it's not fair for you to live here for free while we cover all of your bills. Y'all, this woman's boldness. I'm genuinely standing there, wooden spoon in hand sauce, probably burning trying to digest this BS. Meanwhile, I can hear Brandon upstairs yelling about his CD ratio and Cody, while Sierra's TikTok sounds are coming from the living room. So I ask her, trying not to raise my voice because I'm petty, but not foolish. What about Brandon and Sierra? Are they also paying rent? She does this thing where she dabs her mouth with a handkerchief, even though she hasn't eaten anything, which she learned from Real Housewives is TJ. Then she strikes me with, well, that is different. They are my children, and they are still establishing themselves in life. Brandon is pursuing his content creation job, and Sierra is concentrating on her education. I almost laughed aloud. Brandon's content creation profession consists of lip-syncing to popular songs and playing Fortnite on Twitch for a total of 3 viewers, one of which is most likely his mother, and the other, an alt account, and Sierra's studies. The girl hasn't opened a textbook since freshman year orientation. But here's when it gets good. Tracy begins to set out her realistic rent requirements, $800 per month in this economy, plus utilities, with the expectation that I continue to assist out around the house. I'm standing there, stirring the pasta sauce, when something inside me snaps. You know that scene in movies where everything goes silent and clear? It was like that all the years of being treated like Cinderella. All the snarky remarks, all the extra duties, all the times I had to wash Brandon's crusty gym socks or pick up Sierra's artificial lashes from the bathroom floor, it all hit me at once. So I turn off the burner. Safety first. He set down the spoon and stared Tracy dead in her over-Botoxed expression. Let me get this straight. I say, my voice unusually calm. Brandon, who hasn't earned a single dollar since graduation and spends his days yelling at 12-year-olds on Xbox, doesn't have to pay rent. Sierra, who maxes out her credit cards buying Sheen hauls and has never touched a vacuum in her life, doesn't have to pay rent. But I do. Tracy's face twitches strangely, which is most likely due to Botox interfering with her facial muscles. She starts talking about how I'm more established, how family helps family, and other nonsense she undoubtedly saw in a Facebook mom group. That was when I decided to detonate my own bomb. But first, I summoned everyone to the dining room. I told Tracy I wanted to talk about this because her family used deceptive tactics against her. Ha ha ha. Brandon complained about leaving his game, while Sierra behaved as if getting off the couch was physical torment. But gradually, everyone was seated at the table. I didn't mind that the pasta was chilly. By this point, I'd already lost my appetite. Tracy begins explaining her plan to everyone, treating all officials as if she were the CEO. Brandon is smirking, most likely thinking about how he can spend his allowance on more V-Bucks now that I will be paying the bills. Sierra is capturing everything for her personal tale. The girl enjoys drama as long as it doesn't include her. And that is when I did it. That's when I spoke the words that altered everything. I'm not paying rent because this house belongs to me. The hush that followed, OMG. I wish I had recorded it, folks. I wish I had a photo of their faces. It was as if I had just spoken in an alien language. Brandon really stopped in the middle of his meal, his fork hanging there, and spaghetti falling back into his plate. Gross! Sierra's jaw really dropped, and it was the first genuine look I had seen on her face since she found filters. But Tracy! Oh man, Tracy's reaction was priceless. You know the loading wheel that appears when your computer freezes? That was her face. Her brain seemed to be unable to grasp what I had just spoken. Then they all began laughing like full-fledged hysterical laughter. Good one! Brandon snorts pasta sauce dripping down his chin. Did you acquire that through TikTok or something? Sierra has already pulled out her phone, undoubtedly thinking this would be wonderful content for her relatable family moment series, which has about 50 followers tops. Tracy is also attempting to laugh, but I can tell that panic is setting in. She has that face she gets when her credit card is refused at Nordstrom Rack, which happens more frequently than you may imagine. What are you talking about? She attempts to be dismissive, but her voice shakes. This house is mine and your father's. This is where things start to get good. I simply reclined back in my chair, attempting to exude that calm villain spirit, you know. Also say, why don't you call and ask Dad? Tracy's fake nails began pounding on her iPhone screen so quickly that I thought she might fracture it. I kind of hoped she would, since guess who'd have to go get it fixed, GH. She puts it on speaker like she always does. She enjoys an audience when she believes she is about to win an argument. The phone rings several times before Dad answers. He sounds fatigued, possibly because he was working while his stepson was developing his brand or something. Tracy's voice is pleasant and phony when she says Mark, as if she's trying to gain an upgrade at a hotel. Lucy is telling some interesting stories about the house. She says it belongs to her. That's not true, right? What about the stillness that followed? Deafening. You could literally hear my father clearing his throat when he was uncomfortable. He does it frequently around Tracy. Then finally, well, actually, my in-laws put the house in Lucy's name before they passed away. Boom! Tracy's face changed colors more than my previous mood ring. First with Claire's red, then white, and finally, this strange greenish tint I'd never seen on a human before. What do you mean, they put it in her name? She practically screams now. When were you going to tell me this? I didn't think it was that important. My father adds softly. To be honest, this is a typical dad move. Not important. Tracy is standing up now, her chair scraping against the floor. You didn't think it was important to tell me that your teenage daughter owns our house. She hangs up on him mid-sentence. The phone hit the table so hard that I believed the screen would fracture again. I hoped it would. Brandon is not laughing anymore. He becomes pale when he realizes that the game area he told me to leave was actually mine. Sierra is still recording, but her expression has changed to that of a deer in the headlights. I can almost feel the TikTok drafts getting destroyed in her mind. Tracy is breathing as if she had just run a marathon in her false Louboutins. She's trying to remain calm, but I can see her hands shaking. Well, she continues trying to sound cool, but failing miserably. This has clearly been a misunderstanding. Of course you don't have to pay rent, Lucy. Let's just forget this conversation happened. But here's something I didn't want to forget. I was done forgetting all the nonsense they had put me through over the years. Done being the family doormat. I'm tired of them living rent-free in my house and treating me like a personal maid. So I simply smiled and said, "Oh, we're definitely not forgetting this conversation, in fact." I paused for dramatic effect. What can I say I've learned from the best? I think it's time we had a serious discussion about your living situation. Tracy's terrified expression better than any Christmas present I have ever received. But wait, it gets even better. Because while they're all sitting there processing their new reality, I can hear Tracy's phone vibrating with texts from my father. She is ignoring it, but I know exactly what is going on. He's undoubtedly panicking and texting her about all the legal paperwork my grandparents left, which proves everything I've just said. Okay, so after the nuclear dinner scene, I went to bed feeling really good about myself. Have you ever felt empowered to confront a high school bully? That's how I felt after multiplying it by 1,000. What about Tracy? Oh no, she was not done. Definitely not. So the next morning, as I'm about to go downstairs for breakfast, I hear Tracy's voice coming from the kitchen. She's on the phone with my father on speaker. Because, of course, And guess what she is doing, y'all? Y'all! This woman is literally attempting to persuade my father to let me move out of my own house. Here's the conversation I overheard, which I captured on my phone. Because at this point, I trust these folks as far as I can throw them. Tracy? Mark, you have to do something about this problem. Your daughter is causing problems. Dad sounding exhausted. What do you want me to do, Tracy? How about the out-of-state institutions she applied to? You could persuade her to attend one of them. Tell her that it will benefit her independence. I swear to God what chutzpah this woman has. She's actually out here trying to ship me off to another state so she can continue to live in my house rent-free. But wait, it gets better. Dad said I don't know Tracy in that sugary honey voice she adopts when manipulating others. Think about it, Mark. She's young. She needs to experience life away from home. And honestly, pause. I'm worried about her mental health. All this anger she's carrying around. It's not healthy. Excuse me, the only thing harming my mental health is living with the bad stepmother, from every Disney film combined. But here's the part that really grabbed me. He said, "Maybe you're right. I'll talk to her about moving out for college. It might be better for everyone." I literally had to bite my fist to stop shouting. My own father, whom I've lived with my entire life, who I cared for after Mom died, and who I cooked and cleaned for, has just agreed to try to push me out of my own home. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I proceeded into the kitchen as if I had not heard anything. Tracy almost dropped her phone when she saw me. She was still in her silk robe, probably phony like everything else about her, holding her world's best mom coffee mug, which Brandon and Sierra bought for her at the dollar store for Mother's Day, and she behaves like it's fine china. "Good morning, sweetie," she says, as if she isn't trying to get rid of me. I made coffee. First and foremost, she did not prepare coffee. Instead, she loaded a K-cup into the Keurig I purchased with my Starbucks money. Second honey since when Brandon stumbles in looking like a zombie, presumably up all night, streaming to his 3 viewers. And Sierra follows shortly after, already fully camera ready. It takes her 2 hours every morning. I kid you not. We're all sitting there having breakfast, which I made. Tracy doesn't know how to cook anything that doesn't come from a microwave. And the tension is so strong you could cut it with a knife. Brandon shoveled cereal into his mouth while scrolling through TikTok. Sierra takes pictures of her untouched avocado toast for Instagram, and Tracy pretends to read emails on her phone. But I can tell she's actually looking up how to evict someone who owns your house. Tracy, you're not very subtle with the phone angle. That's when I started to have fun. "Hey, Tracy," I replied casually. "I was thinking about what you said yesterday about rent." She perks up like a meerkat, undoubtedly expecting me to back down. "I suppose you're correct. People should pay rent to live here." The relief on her expression lasted only about 2 seconds before I dropped the bomb. "So, I have been conducting some calculations based on the market pricing in our area. I believe $1,200 per person is reasonable. That is $3,600 for you. Brandon and Sierra. Of course, that excludes utilities. Oh, there will be a security deposit. Chaos. Total chaos." Brandon genuinely choked on his frosted flakes while Sierra's avocado toast went face down on her new white crop top. Karma is real, people. And Tracy appeared to be about to pass out. "You can't be serious," she sputters. "We are family. Oh, I am dead serious. And since you raised a family, I take out my phone, which has a tape of her morning conversation with Dad queued up. Let's speak about your little plot to ship me off to college." Brandon and Sierra are looking between us like they're watching a tennis match, and the color in her cheeks drained so quickly that I thought she'd pass out. So, after I aired the recording of Tracy's phone call, things got crazy. Like Jerry Springer crazy. Tracy rushes up from her chair so quickly that she knocks over her treasured world's best mom cup, which fortunately did not break. She's doing this weird thing with her face, trying to seem angry, but her Botox is fighting back, and it's actually kind of funny. "You've recorded me," she screeches. "That's illegal." I simply smile and add, "Actually, we live in a one-party consent state." I checked. Also my house and my regulations. Brandon is just sitting there with his mouth open, milk trickling down his chin. I suppose this guy never learned how to eat correctly. Sierra is hurriedly texting someone, most likely her TikTok group chat, where she pretends to be wealthy and unconcerned. Tracy begins pacing around the kitchen. Her knockoff Gucci slides, making that annoying flip-flop sound on the tile floor that I cleaned yesterday, and she's muttering something about calling her lawyer cousin. You know, the one who specializes in real estate law but only handles DUI cases in some strip mall office? Then she takes a different approach. Her voice becomes quiet and concerned, as if she's attempting to secure a refund without a receipt. Lucy, I understand you're upset, but what about this behavior? Yeah, it's unhealthy. Your father and I are only trying to help you. Perhaps some time away would be beneficial for you. There's this beautiful college in Michigan. I cut her off right then. Tracy let me make something very clear. I'm not going anywhere. This is my house. The deed is in my name. And if anyone's going to be leaving, it won't be me. That was when she lost it completely. You ungrateful little. I won't mention what she called me, but it wasn't very world's best mom for her. She begins to rant about how she raised me as if I were her own by making me their maid. How she gave up everything to be a good stepmother by shopping at TJ Maxx rather than Nordstrom, and how I'm ripping this family apart. What family? Meanwhile, Brandon and Sierra are experiencing their own meltdowns. Brandon, please. This is bulls. I'm not paying rent. I'm about to blow up on Twitch. Narrator. He wasn't going to blow up on Twitch. Sierra is screaming. Daddy won't let you do this. He loves us more than this stupid house. Spoiler alert, he does not. I just sit there sipping my coffee, which I made because Tracy still doesn't know how to use the French press, and watching them plummet. It's as if every ounce of me gets right in my face and says, listen here, you little bitch. I don't care whose name is on the deed. This is my house. I've lived here for 12 years, and no spoiled brat is going to kick me out. I will make your life hell. Perfect. Just perfect. Because guess what? I've also been taping this entire chat. Not only that, but I had already spoken with a lawyer. Thanks to our legal advice for the recommendations, it turns out that threatening the legal owner of your residence is not a good idea. Who knew, okay? Remember how I discussed speaking with a lawyer? Best decision ever. Turns out my grandparents did more than simply transfer the house in my name. They also set up the entire legal process. Trust estate. I'm not sure what legal terminology is, but it basically prevents anyone from contesting it. My lawyer actually laughed when she saw Tracy's legal threats in the texts I showed her. But let me back up a little. The day following Tracy's minor breakdown, I went nuclear. I served them all with legitimate eviction notices, including official court paperwork. Tracy's facial expression when she was served. Priceless. She attempted to refuse to take the documents, but apparently that is not how it works. Thank you, Reddit. Brandon's reaction was precisely as expected. He flung his gaming chair down the stairs, breaking it. Elmo Karma Sierra had a complete Instagram live tantrum. Congratulations on gaining almost 200 followers. What about Tracy? Oh man. Tracy became completely insane. First, she attempted to contact every single lawyer in town. But here's the thing with small-town lawyers. Everyone knows each other. And after the first couple told her she had no case word spread. Even her DUI cousin refused to touch it. Then she took to social media. She posted a lengthy, dramatic Facebook status on how her ungrateful stepdaughter was attempting to make her family homeless. But that backfired when one of my mother's old friends mentioned Tracy's treatment of me throughout the years, accompanied by receipts. Side note, a shout out to my mother's friend Elise, who has been saving screenshots of Tracy's BBS for years. The hero we did not realize we needed. What is the best part? Tracy's expensive country club friends began to distance themselves. It turns out that they dislike associating with those who are about to become homeless. Funny how that works. Meanwhile, Brandon and Sierra are experiencing their own crisis. Brandon finally recognized that being a content producer isn't a career. When you have 247 followers and your main content is about Fortnite. He tried looking for actual jobs, but professional gamer unofficial does not sound good on a resume. Sierra's sorority friends found out about everything since she shared it on her private story, which has roughly 200 followers there, now everyone chatting about how her luxury bags were most likely fakes and that her father isn't genuinely wealthy. She's having a complete identity crisis, but the real drama began when Tracy attempted her final desperate move. She waited until I was at work before attempting to rearrange some things in the house by reorganizing. I mean, she attempted to take some of my mother's old jewels, which my grandparents had left for me. Unfortunately for her, I had previously installed surveillance cameras following the eviction notice. Thanks again, Reddit, for the advice. I caught her on film trying to put my mother's antique necklaces into her trashy Michael Kors purse. I called the cops. I filed a report. I showed them the footage. Tracy tried to explain to the police officer that she was only moving jewelry that didn't belong to her. Her phony tears didn't work this time, most likely because her mascara wasn't even running. Waterproof makeup completely undermines the dramatic impact. The officer, an elderly woman, took one look at the scene and was not having it, especially when Tracy tried to play the "but we're family" card. Attempting to steal from the legal owner of this house isn't a family matter. I haven't filed charges yet because having something on file for the eviction case is better, but my lawyer was delighted. Speaking of the eviction, remember how Tracy used to talk about her investment accounts and how she was independently wealthy before dating my father? It turns out that was all BS. She has nowhere to go and is in complete panic. She tried calling my father's sister for assistance, but my aunt, who never liked Tracy, simply forwarded her a link to apartment ads in the shady section of town. I felt awful for a moment until I remembered Tracy inadvertently donating my mother's Christmas ornaments to Goodwill. The worst part, my father finally grew a spine. Kind of. He told Tracy that if she does not go gently, he will not accompany her. It turns out that even he was tired of her toxic BS after 12 years. I will notify you when they leave. Final update. So after the entire jewelry theft attempt, Tracy realized she was in trouble. Tracy, on the other hand, felt compelled to make the most spectacular exit imaginable. The day before the final eviction deadline, she attempts one last power play. Calls this a family meeting, MAO. What family? And walks in wearing her phony Chanel suit with the evident wrong pattern, which she claims is vintage. She has a full speech planned about how she's choosing to leave because she can't take the negativity or whatever. Tracy begins this monologue by explaining how she is taking the high road. When did getting legally evicted become an honorable act? Then she drops what she believes is her trump card. Your father and I have decided to move to Florida. We just bought a beautiful house in Tampa, much nicer than this old place. First and foremost, they did not make any purchases. I honestly saw her GoFundMe for Family in Crisis Needs Housing, which received exactly $43 in donations. The majority came from her multi-level marketing group. Second, my father wasn't even present for this news. He was in a hotel. It turns out that witnessing your wife try to steal your deceased wife's valuables is quite depressing. Who knew? But here's when it gets good. While Tracy is doing her faux elegant exit speech, the movers I hired arrive specifically in the midst of her. This house was beneath me anyway. Diatribe. There are these gigantic dudes coming in with crates and dollies. Tracy's face does that odd frozen thing again. Botox with wrath equals comedic gold, and she began shouting about how she wasn't prepared and needed more time to organize her items. The head mover guy shouts out to Mike, "You're a real one," looks at her and says, "Ma'am, we have strict instructions. Everything gets packed and moved to your storage unit today. If you want your stuff, you'll need to take it up with the court, y'all." She lost it. Full nuclear meltdown. Started snatching random items claiming they were family heirlooms, including my mother's ceramic bowl, which she had wanted to throw away last year. Sierra's upset because her TikTok backdrop has been wrecked. Brandon is having a panic attack because he cannot disconnect his gaming equipment quickly enough. But this is the finest part. Tracy used to brag about her designer items, vintage bags, and expensive clothing. The movers begin packing it, and half the labels practically come off. While all of this is going on, I'm sitting on my couch having coffee at home and watching them scramble. I posted a couple updates to my private tale, and suddenly all these individuals from high school are sliding into my direct messages like, "OMG!" I always knew she was fake final inventory of items. They attempted to steal on their way out. 3 of my mother's necklaces captured on camera. My grandmother's china set also on camera. The nice coffee maker. I purchased it with my Starbucks money. Every single towel in the house. A strange flex, but okay. The garage door opener. Really? But you know what? They can keep the towels. I've already purchased new extremely excellent ones that Tracy would have complained were too expensive while spending $500 on her false designer items. What about the actual eviction chef's kiss? They had to complete the walkthrough with the sheriff's deputy, which was a typical process, but more fulfilling. Tracy tried to claim that I damaged her belongings during the relocation. The deputy simply pointed at my security cameras and asked if she wanted to file a fake report. She shut up quickly. So where are they now? Tracy and my father are staying in her sister's 2-bedroom apartment in the next town over. Apparently, it's not working. Well, as her sister wrote on Facebook about ungrateful house guests who don't do dishes. Brandon had to sell his gaming equipment to put down a deposit on a room in a shady house. Share. He's currently working at GameStop, which could be beneficial to him. Sierra moved in with her sorority sisters, but it only lasted a week until they became tired of her sobbing. Now she commutes 2 hours to college from her mother's sister's house. Her most recent TikTok is about being humbled, but she's still being rationed in the comments. As for me, the house is so quiet now, like strangely peaceful. There will be no more odors of imitation luxury perfume everywhere. No more passive-aggressive notes about properly loading the dishwasher. No more 3 a.m. screaming from Brandon's gaming sessions. I converted his previous room into my home office, which is already furnished with genuine designer items, because I can afford it now that I am not paying for their groceries. Sierra's room is becoming my ideal closet. Tracy's meditation room, where she spent the day watching Real Housewives, is now my yoga studio. Dad calls occasionally. He's living with Tracy for now, but really he seems exhausted. I believe he has finally realized what everyone else knew. 12 years ago, he married a gold digger who isn't even skilled at gold digging. Was I overly harsh? Maybe. Do I regret it? Nope. They screwed around. They discovered it. It turns out that karma doesn't care about your faux Gucci slides. Final update. My mom's best friend Elise is currently renting one of the spare rooms, so I'm not alone in this large house. She's teaching me all of Mom's old recipes and helping me replace things Tracy threw away over the years. Sometimes excellent things emerge from horrible situations. Thank you for following this adventure, Reddit. You guys truly helped me stay strong during this. Especially the legal counsel. You guys rock at it. Holy crap, this is the end. Thank you for all of your help throughout this wild adventure. You guys are fantastic at it too. Please stop requesting me to post security camera footage. I'm not trying to be blacklisted, LOL. Final edit. Yes, this is true. No, I will not prove it due to privacy concerns. And sure, I am in treatment.
Story 3. The Retirement Celebration of Thomas Gale. April 15th, 6 p.m. At the end of March, the invitation arrived. The envelope had a light cream tint and was addressed in my Aunt Hillary's recognizable round handwriting. The mail included a personal letter from her, but the writing was official and straightforward. I hope everything is going well for you, Tracy. Regarding your father's retirement celebration, I'm writing to you. I am the only member of the family who has maintained contact with you, as you are aware. 15 years is a long period. However, I'm hoping you'll think about coming this one time. I'd want to assist in repairing our relationship with Hillary. As I clutched the letter, my hands shook a little. Since that testimony, Hillary was the only family member who continued to communicate with me, occasionally sending me a letter or email, and no one else had been in touch with me personally. I repeatedly read what she had to say. Do I have to go? If I went, my heart would tremble fiercely. It would undoubtedly hurt. Maybe my dad won't even look at me. Neither Kevin nor my mother would accept me. We were separated by a great distance after 15 years of quiet. I could feel its weight without much imagination. On the other hand, this may be the final chance. He was past the age of retirement, and he was eventually resigning this April. I might never get to see my family again if I didn't attend this celebration. I grabbed a pen and sat down at my desk. I wanted to decline the invitation in a letter, but my hand would not move. Why should I continue to flee? There was nothing wrong with me. Since then, I have been on my own road, having testified for the sake of justice. Hillary's remarks kept repeating in my head. I wished to assist in repairing things. For these 15 years, she had been the sole person between me and the rest of the family. I had to respond to her request. I said to myself, just once more. Again. I make an effort to interact with my family, and even if it was the real end of our connection, I could say that I made an effort. I emailed her a quick response the next day. "Thank you for your letter, Aunt Hillary. I'll be at my dad's retirement celebration. But Tracy, please realize that this could be the final time." I let out a long sigh after mailing it. My feelings were mixed up. Fear and determination, anxiety and optimism. But there was no going back once I made up my mind. 15 years have passed. It was the corruption scandal involving bid rigging on public projects, misappropriation of funds, and Daniel Anderson, a longtime friend of my father's and a prominent person in the local construction sector. I was a constitutional law graduate student at the time, and I testified on behalf of the prosecution. I carefully recited only the facts when I testified on behalf of the prosecution. However, Daniel was found guilty as a result of those facts. My father was deeply affected by the repercussions. His reputation suffered greatly as his long-standing relationship with Daniel came under investigation. He had to deal with chilly looks from co-workers, extensive media coverage, and questions from the municipal council. Even resigning was discussed, but he battled to clear his name and was able to hold on to his job. His faith was gradually restored over time, and he continued to work for the firm after reaching retirement age. My father refused to even look at me on the day of the verdict. "Why did you betray him?" My mother sobbed. "Your father's life was wrecked by you." Kevin also spit. "You put justice before family, therefore." What has happened to him since then? Do you even know? I didn't communicate with them. No birthday calls, no Christmas cards. The only person left in my life was Hillary. I've heard that my father stayed active in the community even after he reached retirement age. He was popular and regarded as a respectable person. For my part, I worked in my Cambridge office in silence, mentoring students and delving deeply into legal study. I made an effort not to think about my family, but I would always remember them. I took great care in selecting my attire for the celebration. A strand of pearls, a white shirt, and a blue suit. Classy, written without attracting too much notice. I inhaled deeply after glancing at myself in the mirror. I was already planning how I was going to get through the day until I got to the motel. The place was already crowded. People had assembled to honor my father's lengthy career, including the mayor, members of the city council, and local business leaders. I moved stealthily to the rear of the room, avoiding the welcome table. I lacked the bravery to reveal my identity. I wanted to remain unseen, like an unexpected visitor. Kevin saw me at that point. His face became pale when he saw me, even though he had been talking to some buddies. "Tracy?" He approached. His expression was one of disbelief. "Why are you here?" My brother had changed into a totally different person in the 15 years since I last saw him. Aunt Hillary had informed me that Kevin was now employed as a physician. "Kevin," I whispered softly. Our mother suddenly materialized behind him. She froze the once she spotted me. The glass shuddered in her grasp. "Tracy." Her voice trembled. "Why? Who?" The tension was starting to be noticed by others around us. I heard murmurs. "Who is she?" "The daughter of Mr. Gale. It's been years since I last saw her." My mother clutched my arm in panic. "We are unable to communicate here. Come on over here." I followed her and Kevin to a more peaceful area of the space. Fortunately, it appeared that my father had not yet spotted me, even though a few people were watching us. "You were invited by whom?" My mother inquired in a low voice that was a little confused and a little angry. And I said, "Hillary." Kevin's sigh was harsh. "Naturally. Hillary has to interfere every time." "Kevin." After interrupting him, my mother turned back to face me. "Tracy, your father is unaware of your presence. It will be disastrous if he sees you, don't you think?" I smiled wryly as I spoke. Thus, I remain the unwelcome visitor. Her face contorted in discomfort. Her once beautiful face was marked with deep wrinkles from 15 years. The woman I remembered was still there, but she now had a worn-out, weary appearance. "I'm pleading with you, Tracy. Get out of there before your father notices. It's a big day." I couldn't speak. My mother told me to leave right away after we had been together for 15 years. Aunt Hillary showed up. Tracy. She was standing there with a worried expression on her face as I turned around. "You really did come, Aunt Hillary," she remarked, softly grasping my hand. However, she instantly realized what was going on after glancing at my brother's and mother's heated looks. "Hillary." "You brought Tracy here, but why?" In a quiet voice, my mother inquired. "Thomas would, you know." Hillary interrupted her for precisely that reason. 15 years have passed. How long will we continue to live this way? She turned to face me and spoke strongly after that. "You have every right to be here, Tracy, even though your father is obstinate. This is a family get-together." 2. My brother and mother appeared confused. I was no longer family to them. Hillary, however, didn't think so, and I was aware that my father would probably immediately throw me out if he caught me. I was an unexpected visitor, attempting to take a deep breath. Nevertheless, I was happy to see my family once more, even though I wasn't welcomed. What's all this commotion then? We pivoted. My father was standing there. When his eyes locked with mine, his face froze. "Tracy." His voice was tight with repressed rage and low. "Thomas, why are you here?" Hillary moved forward. She was invited. "Is Tracy your daughter?" "Daughter?" His sneer was nasty. "I don't have a daughter." This family was deceived by that individual. I let out a gasp. My father's first comments in 15 years were as ruthless and icy as a sword. "Dad." With a quivering voice, I spoke. "Keep your mouth shut. You are here for no purpose." I was silenced when my father held out a hand. Everybody in the room looked at us. The rising murmurs were audible to me. A surge of guilt and grief weighed heavily on my chest, almost choking me. "Thomas? You can't talk to her like that." Hillary objected as well. My father yelled, "Hillary, don't get involved." "She is not related." I turned to go. There was no way I could remain any longer. My father then stated something that caught me off guard. "All right, at least remain for my speech later since you're here. It will serve as a suitable lesson in embarrassment." Startled, I turned to face him. He planned to let me remain, if only to publicly humiliate me, when I had assumed he would toss me out right away. There was just disdain in his eyes. As if I didn't exist, he turned away without saying anything further and went back to talking to the other visitors. I couldn't understand. I anticipated conflict and rage. But more than yelling ever could, this calculating disregard and icy indifference unnerved me. "Are you all right?" Hillary then spoke softly in a whisper. "I believe so. However, why didn't he force me to go?" I felt a sinking sensation in my chest. "He has a plan. He won't just ignore it." My father took the microphone shortly after. It was his turn to speak. "I appreciate everyone's attendance today." With ease and power, his voice reverberated across the hall. He talked about his 42 years of service, including the challenges and successes, and thanked his family and coworkers for their unwavering support. I believed I saw him look at me when he used the term family. However, he swiftly averted his gaze. "My son Kevin, who practices medicine in our town and has aided countless people, is someone I'm particularly proud of." And he was obviously staring at me. My heart started pounding. Was he going to give me a nod? I straightened my posture and awaited my father's words. "And the shame of our family is here with us now." A swarm of murmurs swept through the space. Dozens of eyes shifted in my direction. My face was emptied of blood. The Morrison family name has been tarnished by one of us. Tracy is that individual. She is nothing like the daughter I claim her to be. She is an embarrassment and a failure. I was having trouble staying upright. His remarks were sharp as blades. Failure. The phrase kept repeating in my head. Our family is ashamed of this individual. She destroyed her father's life and deceived us. I'm very sorry. We have to have someone like her in our midst. There was silence in the room. I sensed their looks. Disgust, pity, curiosity. Trapped in the maelstrom of judgment, I stood there. My father really felt this way. At first, he appeared unconcerned. Perhaps, however, that was all part of his scheme. And now he had made me seem bad in front of everyone. As though I had already been erased, he carried on with his remarks as like nothing had occurred, and gradually the audience turned its focus back to his well-crafted remarks and away from me. Silently, I turned and headed for the door. There was no point in remaining. It was evident from his statements that our relationship could not be saved. However, I heard someone cry out to me just before I got to the doors. My father's business president, Franklin, was there. He had always been friendly to me and had known me when I was a young child. "Tracy, have you got a moment?" I gave a little nod. He guided me to a peaceful area of the corridor. "I heard what your dad had to say. He was careful with his word choice. However, I am aware of your true nature. Your father might not. However, I do." Confused, I scowled. What was he discussing? "I take it that you are a Harvard professor? Constitutional law." Stunned, I gazed at him. How was he aware that my son was enrolled in law school? "He frequently mentions you." "Well, Professor Teagle, you're famous." I requested him to show me a photo after recognizing the name. I realized right away that I couldn't speak. I never thought anyone in this tiny town would actually recognize me. "Now, why don't you speak the truth?" Frank held my arm tenderly while he talked. "Your father should be aware of your true identity. You don't need to wait till tomorrow. Tracy, you've endured enough suffering for 15 years, yet I hesitated. You no longer have to bear this miscommunication." I took a big breath after hearing his comments, which gave me the boost I needed. Perhaps it was time to come out of hiding. My father had rejected me, and my family had left me. I didn't have to minimize my value, though. I had spent the previous 15 years working non-stop. I looked back toward the corridor. My father stood with everyone around him, still grinning and soaking in the praise. I plucked up all my bravery and started to approach him. "Dad." My voice reverberated throughout the corridor. His grin dimmed. Everyone around us stopped talking. "Are you still present?" "I assumed you were gone." "Cold," he said. "You mentioned me?" With a quivering voice, I spoke. "I was considered a failure by you." "Yes, exactly. You are this family's embarrassment." Without hesitation, he said. Once more, the crowd whispered. People started to swarm around us. Frank moved forward to stand next to me. Calm but forceful, he said, "Thomas, the truth is you have no idea who your daughter is." "Do you?" "Frank, what are you talking about?" My dad frowned. "Your daughter teaches at Harvard University as a professor. She is a nationally renowned constitutional law specialist." The hall was filled with a startled hush. My dad's face became white. My mom gave a little gasp. My father murmured, "That's absurd. This youngster cannot possibly be a Harvard professor. You must be wrong." Frank turned to face me and replied, "I'm not mistaken." "Would you show him, Tracy?" I took out my business card, which had a clear print, from my purse. Harvard University constitutional law professor Dr. Tracy Gale. My father took it from me. He accepted it with a trembling hand. "This," he continued, "this must be fake," but his voice was no longer convincing. My phone came out and I went to the Harvard University website. It showed my faculty profile, credentials, biography, and photo. "Still don't you trust me?" Quietly, I asked. "I am a Harvard constitutional law professor. Across the nation, legal schools employ my research." My father, however, obstinately shook his head. He argued that this was a fabrication. A phony website may be created by anybody. A business card may be printed by anyone. From the audience, more whispers. The visitors began to feel confused and uneasy. Frank took another step forward. "What are you saying, Thomas? Are you certain that this is a fake?" "It is, of course." My dad's voice came up. "She could never be a professor at Harvard. You're attempting to pull a prank on me, but I'm not going to fall for it." Guests looked at each other doubtfully. The scenario that was developing obviously unnerved them. Frank remained unflinching. "Thomas, your refusal to accept this is the only reason you are unable to do so. However, this is the reality. Your daughter is a professor at Harvard. Quit talking." My dad let out a shout. "You dare not tell me a lie." Then a young man came forward from the rear of the room. It was the son of Frank. "Let me talk, Dad," "She's my professor," he added. "No error exists." My dad's face lost all of its color. I spoke quietly while glancing at him. "Why do you find it so difficult to acknowledge my success?" Despite his lack of words, I could see the maelstrom of emotions churning beneath the surface of his eyes. With a voice that shook, "That can't be," remarked my father. I moved forward a step. "Do you think the evidence is phony? Does the truth frighten you?" His face twisted. "If you've truly developed into such a successful person, what if so? It implies that I was mistaken. It indicates that my decision to leave you during that trial was a mistake." The hush in the room grew even more profound. The reality that he had concealed from himself was exposed by his confession. "When you testified 15 years ago, my main concern was defending my own viewpoint. I didn't want to think you were acting morally. Because if I did..." His voice broke. "In that case, I would have to acknowledge that I was the type of parent who discarded his daughter in order to preserve myself. I so persuaded myself that you were a failure and that you were mistaken. I may then continue to act like the victim." My mom gave a little gasp. Kevin's expression was one of surprise as he stood still. "You will have achieved success if I acknowledge that you are a Harvard professor. What does it make me then? A stupid dad who attempted to ruin his daughter's future?" Silently, I listened. My father was now acknowledging the reality that had been hidden deep within of him. "I wanted you to fail. I could say I was correct if your life ended up being horrible, that my selfishness was justified, that I had made the right choice." Frank's tone was heard. "Thomas grave. You feared she would succeed." "Yes, exactly. I was terrified that if Tracy was successful, everyone would see how ugly I am. I thus want her failure. When I labeled you a failure," he looked up at me, "not because I thought you were. The reason is that I needed you to be, to get away from my own guilt." Then, as though his legs were giving out, he fell into a chair. What did I do? The crowd started to realize the seriousness of what had just transpired as the truth finally set in. From the opposite side of the room, my mother hurried over. "Does it actually happen, Tracy? You teach at Harvard as a professor?" "Yes," I replied softly. "Mom." Kevin moved to face Tracy. "We were unaware. To be honest, we had no idea." "Didn't you attempt to find out?" I answered, meeting his gaze directly. "You all pretended that I didn't exist for 15 years. What I was doing didn't matter to you. You didn't even inquire." "Everyone," Frank turned to them. "One of the nation's top constitutional academics is Tracy. Significant court decisions have been impacted by her work. She has been accomplishing amazing things, but you were unaware of them." My father glanced up at last. "Tracy, I apologize. Really, is a mere apology sufficient, in your opinion? I got up gradually for 15 years. This family didn't see me. How agonizing was it, do you know? I held up my hand to stop my mother from taking a step in my direction. I'm not going to forgive everything just yet. I require time." Frank's voice was soft. "I know how you feel, Tracy. Families, however, are not perfect. What they take away from them is what counts." I inhaled deeply. There was a thick quiet in the room. Nobody spoke. Then I said, "Dad, I didn't live my life to please you. However, you must at least be aware of the reality. I'm not a failure." After saying that, I turned and left. As I went outdoors, the night air kissed my cheeks. There was a profound melancholy mixed with a sense of liberation. I was still unsure if my family's relationship would ever be restored. I had been back in Cambridge for a week. My relatives called and emailed me every single day. I first disregarded them, but as time went on, I saw that their communications started to take on a different tone. Tracy, my dad, was the first to apologize. "I sincerely apologize for the incident that occurred the other day. I painted you as the bad guy for years in order to keep myself safe. I had no idea how much you had achieved, and my own presumptions caused me to damage you. I'm sincerely sorry for what I have done." My mother then made contact. "This is Mom, Tracy. I was unaware that you were a Harvard professor. We never even made an effort to learn what your life had devolved into. I now realize how much suffering you must have endured throughout the years. I'm so sorry. I even received a rare letter from Kevin Tracy. As a doctor, I have seen a lot of patients, but I have never once made an effort to comprehend my own family. We blamed you even though you did the right thing. I was unable to see your bravery for what it was. I apologize. I didn't immediately respond, though. I was unable to determine if their apologies were a sincere expression of sorrow or whether they were only a reaction to the shock of learning of my accomplishment. I wrote a brief response a week later. You have apologized to me. Even if I haven't harbored anger for the past 15 years, I can't go back in time to the way things were. I want us to think about if we can create a new form of partnership. I need some space for now. Tracy? My family's connection temporarily ceased after I sent the message. I was relieved and, surprisingly, a little lonely. A month or so later, Tracy received a call from Aunt Hillary. How are you? I'm doing okay. Hillary, too. I appreciate you checking in. In fact, I wanted to discuss your family with you. She spoke carefully. Kevin, your mother, and your father, all of them have begun attending therapy. I was taken aback. Therapy? Indeed. They had a lengthy conversation after that evening. At last, they understood how much they had wounded you. They've made the decision to get professional assistance because they want to change. Hillary, Aunt, is that accurate? Yes, it is. The counselor explained to them how agonizing it must have been to be rejected for so long by your own family. Every time I heard Thomas cry during a session, a range of conflicting feelings surged in my chest. It was hard for me to picture my dad crying. However, they are not immediately requesting your forgiveness. They simply want to get back in touch on your terms, she continued. Perhaps you could start with baby steps if you're willing. I pondered for a while after I hung up if I could meet them halfway if they were genuinely attempting to change. Try at least. I wrote a brief email to my mother 2 months later. I've heard that you're attending counseling, Mom. That seems like a wise move. Please give me more time. I'm still processing my own emotions. Tracy. The following day, she responded, Tracy, I appreciate you writing. We won't hurry you. We genuinely wish to make a change. I hope we can reunite as a true family one day. We then started sending each other brief texts roughly once a month. My dad emailed me updates about his job. My mom told me tidbits of her everyday life. Kevin wrote about his medical experiences. There was no longer any coldness or animosity, but the material was still very superficial. They were really trying, and I could tell. I called the family for the first time 2 months later. Tracy was picked up by my mother. Her voice became joyful. Mom, how are you? I'm doing all okay. My perspective has improved as a result of counseling. How foolish we were to treat you in that manner. Our conversation lasted about an hour. She informed me about their therapy sessions and how much my father and Kevin had learned to think about what they had done. Someday, I hope, we can all get together and have a meaningful conversation. I said, Really? Her voice faltered. Are you saying that you'll pardon us? I'd like to attempt restoring trust, but not quite yet. Gradually. While I was still working at the university 6 months later, I made a crucial choice. I started a new initiative, a program to help youngsters from disadvantaged backgrounds. It was a program created to provide mentorship and scholarships to students who wanted to go to law school but had to give up their aspirations because of financial difficulties. Professor Susan, one of my colleagues, glowed when I brought up the concept. That's amazing. However, why this suddenly? I hesitated before responding, because I understand what it's like to feel totally alone and misunderstood. Additionally, I want to help children who are in that similar situation. Through this endeavor, your story is turning into someone else's strength. I got to know a lot of young individuals. Some were bearing the burden of suffering from family that were unable or unwilling to comprehend them. I told them that how other people see them doesn't determine their value. I'm still thinking about my own family now. Although I can appreciate their attempt to improve, I still can't forgive them completely. How will the connection develop in the future? I'm not sure yet. However, I no longer harbor resentment or anger. Time does heal sometimes. I continue to work with my pupils in my office every day while keeping that in mind.